Love is calling and we're answering. Welcome to the Lover List, where we bring you the most heartwarming love, dating, and relationship stories straight from Reddit. Don't miss out on the love. Like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications. You go on a first date with someone. What habit or characteristic is a deal breaker? I went on a date with a girl. This date was a disaster. She got food in her hair and all over the place. She wouldn't get off her phone, and she stabbed herself in the cheek with her fork because she wasn't paying attention. I've never seen her since. Here is a great story. First date in college. I drive a truck and live in a city, so spots are tight. This spot is particularly tight. So I say, this is a tight spot, so watch your door when you open it. Girl, are you telling me how to open my door? Doesn't pay basic attention and slams the door into the other car. OMG. She's such an idiot. I absolutely hate people like that, when they're sassy for no reason and proceed to do what you explicitly said not to do. Repeatedly interrupting me when I'm talking, especially when I'm answering a question they asked. It tells me they're not actually engaged in what I'm saying. I know a girl who asks every guy she goes on a date with what his credit score is. She wants to make sure they're financially stable. Also, she's 23 and doesn't know how to pump gas. Self-deprecating to the point where everything needs to be somehow connected in a negative way back to yourself. Like literally everything. While chatting it's even more obvious. Sad faces all the time. I'm dumb. I don't deserve what I've achieved, etc. How about when I was invited out with a guy I met online to a nearby sushi place? We'd texted and chatted for about a week till I finally felt comfortable meeting him. Date picked me up. The conversation on the drive there was great. Seemed like we were connecting. However, while at the restaurant, he proceeded to order about $100 worth of sushi, while I ordered maybe a roll and some appetizers. My total would have been about $30 at most. I tried to engage him, but quickly realized the conversation was lacking because he was, busy. He proceeded to text on his phone the entire time at dinner, ignored me and took pics of his food, posted that the place we were at was amazing. He ate everything in front of him. Okay, gotcha. At this point, I knew what was going on. And when the bill came, he was still on his phone, posting, texting, laughing at the response to his posts. He ignored the waiter, plus the bill. The waiter politely left it on the table. I looked at my date, then the waiter. Date never looked up from his phone. I then quietly and politely asked the waiter to split our bill. Since date was so consumed with his phone, he didn't notice. Waiter retrieved the bill, adjusted it, then came back, with separate bills this time. The look on my date's face when he was handed a $100 bill for his food was priceless. I paid mine with my card, plus a hefty tip. Date asked me oh crap, I forgot my wallet. Can you spot me? I just pretended I was on my phone and left him there, and walked out the door. I'd already ordered an Uber at this point, since he drove us there. And yes, don't worry, the waiter got a massive tip. About the amount of my bill, it wasn't his fault that the date was at. If they are hard to talk to, might not make them a bad person. But obviously there is no chemistry if all I get are one-word answers where they also don't reciprocate questions. So you're a teacher, right? Yep. Well, that's cool. What grade? Second. What a great age. That's like the perfect time, 'cause kids still kind of like school. Check please. I still get this with my girlfriends sometimes. I think some people can just be natural listeners. Obviously it won't be received very well on the first date. Being a know-it-all. I had lunch with someone who called the table salt sodium chloride and used the bread as a way to tell me everything he knew about complex carbohydrates, some of which wasn't even correct, and their connections to evolutionary theory. Just felt like he was compensating for something. Getting so drunk on the first date that you can't figure out Uber and I have to drive you home. No, you can't stay on my couch, I don't know you. I did this once. That relationship ended up lasting 2 years though. Was going to just be a hookup, my first time doing that, so I got drunk to not be nervous, got too drunk, he took me back to his house and out me in pajamas and fed me pizza and held my hair while I puked. I thought he would never want to see me again, but he was cool about it. That's the story of how my friends first started dating. I want to say it was date 2 or 3. They're married now. Too much discussion about money. So how much do you think you're gonna get when your parents finally croak? Not a date, but first time meeting my current GF's friends. The one's first question to me was, so what do you do for a living? How much do you make? I've never forgotten it and haven't cared for her since that moment. Someone who doesn't ask about me. It shows that they don't actually care. I was so nervous that when he asked something, I would just talk about myself and I forgot to ask anything about him. Noticed it the second we ended the date. But we had a second one. I did get to ask him about himself and well, I really wish I hadn't. Edit. This is going to be really disappointing. It wasn't like a one thing he said. He just turned out to be a bit creepy. He tried to convince me that his hobby is walking in the woods during dark nights. He really wanted me to go with him into the woods like immediately, and of course I didn't. He might have been sincere, but seriously, I'm not going to do that and he shouldn't have pushed me to do it. If he had said I really like to go into the woods when it's dark, I would have said wow, that's cool and he could have told a bit about it. But you don't pressure someone to do it on the second date. He also had a problem with pretty much everyone in his workplace, except his boss who told him every day that he is doing everything right. Yep, sounds normal. On their phone the whole time. If you can't disconnect for an hour or so to engage with me, then it's not going to work, right? I'm on a date as I'm reading this entire thread and I can't believe how much of it I agree with. This bitch keeps tooting and clearing her throat loudly and I don't know why. Learn some manners. Constantly talking about their exes. I feel like there's a balance needed. For my so and I, we were upfront about weird issues we brought with us from past relationships. Everyone has baggage. You gotta be able to talk about it so your new boo won't be confused when something unimportant, to them, stresses you out completely. I know there are things that would have really annoyed me, because we talked about our past relationship issues. It was a lot easier to grow past it and be better with one another. Edit. To add some context, yes, it was our first date. We also live in NYC, so my theory that the city makes everything move at a quicker pace, even tough conversations about communication and emotional boundaries. They talk over me and spend the conversation giving me unsolicited advice about how to live my life. Edit. I feel like I need to specify that I was thinking of one specific first date that did not become a second date when I answered this, lol. The guy didn't like that I had dyed my hair blonde at the bottom and spent a lot of the date telling me about the dangers of bleaching your hair and how I should learn to make better choices. I just wanted to have a good dinner, man. The amount of guys who think negging is a good flirting technique is ridiculous. Contrary to what you read on WikiHow, insulting a girl doesn't make her want to impress you. It just makes her realize you're a One guy I matched with on Tinder asked me for my Snapchat and when I gave it to him he said, "Oh, I don't want it, I'm not attracted. Wouldn't want to go on a date or anything disgusting like that." He was trying to flirt, but it was an instant turn-off. I'm not here to be insulted or put down, and being rude isn't cute. I was once set up to go on a blind date with this girl. We were given each other's email addresses and so I hit her up. We exchanged a few pleasantries, then set up a date time to finally meet. The day of, I get an email from her in the morning with an attachment. I open up the attachment and there is a questionnaire with like 25 to 30 questions on it. She requested I kindly fill out the questionnaire before we meet. I quickly reviewed the questions before sending her a reply saying that it's probably best we don't meet. I don't know what characteristic she embodied, but I'd say that was a deal breaker. What kind of questions were they? I don't recall the exact questions, as it was a long time ago, but I do remember some were as innocuous as dog or cat, but others required further explanation like who is your favorite person in the world? What has she done to make you like them so much? It was insane. I've had job interviews that were less thorough. Spending the whole time on their phone. Had a first date with a guy once. At some point I asked him to look up something on his phone. I forget exactly what the context was, and he told me he had intentionally left his phone in his car for our date. Color me impressed. We dated for nearly a year. I do this when I go to parties or social events. I'll leave my phone in the car intentionally so I can be present and engage with people. It's not like I'm glued to my phone, but I notice I will unconsciously look at my phone for a minute or check messages. It's a terrible habit. I'm sure there's a middle ground, but leaving my phone in the car seems to work just fine. Someone who makes me read their bad poetry. This has happened to me more than once. Edit, as I just woke up to a bunch of responses and I can't possibly reply to them all individually. I don't hate poetry, I very much like it. Especially Vogon poetry. However, on a first date, there is a huge difference between, "Have you read this poem by X? What do you think of this bit? And here is my notebook, read it all and tell me what you think." Story bits for those who asked. The first time this happened, I was 18 and we met through mutual friends. While it wasn't great, it wasn't emo angsty levels of bad. Unfortunately, he then started sending me poetry he had written about me and calling me his muse. This after having met once. He then went full stalker. So yeah, nope. Second time was some years later. It was bad, but I was not mean about it. We continued chatting, then said goodnight politely and parted. The next day he went from "I had a really nice time, give me a call," to "I am sure you are busy, but please reply," to "clearly you are ignoring me, so let's never speak again," in the space of a 3-hour barrage of text messages. I was at work, so I didn't see the messages till lunchtime. Zero opinions on anything. If I'm going to date someone, I want some sort of brains or passion going on up there. I had this happen with a girl I was talking to 3 years ago. She seemed to have no passion about anything, and honestly it seemed like she didn't have any personal opinions. Conversation would go something like this: me, what are you majoring in? Her, history. Me, what time period are you interested in? Her, none really, just studying it because my parents said I would probably like it. Me, what sort of job are you hoping to get after graduating? Her, my parents said I'd make a good teacher, so I'll probably look into that. Whenever I asked her a question, the answer about why she liked something, or her interest, or an opinion, she would always talk about it as if it was someone else's idea or opinion, and it always seemed to be. One of my best friends casually began to date one of my ex-girlfriend's friends. He was really starting to like her and took her out on consistent dates, a few sleepovers, etc. My ex-girlfriend told me this girl was texting her about her date with my friend later that night. My ex asked her if she was into him as much as he was her. Her literal response was no, but free food is free food. I was hurt for him, devastated. I didn't want him to feel what I felt, and I wasn't even the one dating her. I took my friend, roommate at the time also, aside that afternoon and asked him to please delete her number and never talk to her again. I didn't say why. I just asked him to trust me and to please stop seeing her. It's for the honest best. Knowing me for years and years, he politely accepted my request and deleted her, without question. He knew I knew something and understood I was helping him avoid emotional pain and disappointment. He is too nice of an individual to experience that. Trust goes a long way. They only want to talk about themselves. I once had a 2-hour blind date. By the end, I knew everything about this girl. I knew all of her cats by name, and what their favorite movies were. She asked me literally nothing, and just kept jumping from topic to topic. At the end of the date, she wanted to trade numbers, and I couldn't help but ask what's my name, and she didn't know. So I just paid for my meal and left. I'm sorry, her cats had favorite movies? I'm imagining you going over to her place and a tabby rubs against your foot. Oh, you must be Matilda, who loves natural-born killers. Good choice. Oh, and is that Randolph? You really couldn't think of anything better than snakes on a plane? Humans getting hurt and dangly noodles to play with? Snakes on a Plane is the perfect movie for a cat. Reminding me of my dad. I love my dad, honestly, but I don't want to date him. When I met my wife's dad the first time, I realized I was pretty much the complete opposite of him. My sister dated guys that were the complete opposite as well, but unfortunately for her, our dad is really nice and cool, so she dated a lot of girls. She ended up with a guy who has a personality a lot like our dad while looking or sounding nothing at all like him. My coworker, OTOH, is currently upset that her daughter is dating an older guy who looks and acts just like her father and has the same profession. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Relationship Stories that'll make your heart skip a beat. If you were captivated by these tales, please hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments. Don't miss out on any future episodes. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for a steady dose of heartwarming stories.